It's March Mania at Sports Interaction.
Wow.
NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, so much more. It's bananas. Bananas.
That was good spelling.
Thank you. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness exclusive games with insane odds you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet at Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario. Use the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Or head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN to get started. It's 18 plus. Please play responsibly.
The show is Nailing the Apex. The host is Tim Hauraney. Brand new show to the network, and we're thrilled to have you, Tim. And we're so excited about this because Drive to Survive this year has been so great. And episode 4 starts with Haas. And it's the enigma of Mick Schumacher because, here's a guy with, a name that is probably the most famous in the sports history besides Hamilton. Mm-hmm. He's got the name, he's got the sponsors because of the name, but he also has the resume. This guy won F3. He won F2. Yep. So he's got the resume to be in the sport. He jumps into a Haas car that was supposed to be bad, and boy, were they bad in 21.
Yep.
And then this year, 2022, they have a car that compete. Kevin Magnussen proves that in the first race.
Yep.
The question is,
why can't he stop cutting the cars in half by
yeah.
crashing them into the wall?
Yes. Is Mick Schumacher an F1 driver?
Well, that was the question, wasn't it? And I mean, if you were looking at last season, it was tough. He had a lot of struggles. I remember getting to Canadian Grand Prix and, the team expressing to me that they weren't too happy with Schumacher's management from behind the scenes.
Who's his manager?
Oh, wow.
Can't remember who the full team was, but one of the persons used to manage Michael.
Okay.
The dad.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. And, but I think my opinion is that maybe they were managing Mick the way they would manage Michael. Michael's was a 7-time Formula One world champion, one of the greatest F1 drivers ever.
A savant. Brilliant.
Mick isn't. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Coming into last season, he did one season of Formula One and he spent his time at the back, never scored any points. And now you're coming into 2022, you have a teammate in Kevin Magnussen who barely did any testing in the car, jumps in and gives the team one of its best finishes ever. And Mick's kind of nowhere to be found almost, but then if you're getting a hard time from his management, then I think that's going to rub some people on the team the wrong way. That's how I saw it, and that's how, from some of the people I spoke to, how things kind of went down there, but it was tough for him. I think for Mick, one of the things that I've always noticed following his career was he was always a bit of a slow starter, where it took him time to figure out what he needed to give the race car so he could get the performance from it. If you look at Formula 3, he didn't win that Formula 3 championship his first year. It was the second year. If you look at Formula 2, he didn't win that championship the first year. It was the second year, and it actually wasn't until a little bit later in the season, and I believe there was some really good talent on that grid. And I think Mick just won that F2 championship.
I think Sonoda and Latifi, and there were some other ones that
that was 2019.
2019. Okay.
2020, there was Callum Ilott was on the grid, and he's awesome. Callum Ilott's an IndyCar now, but he should be in Formula One. That guy's a real good talent. But yeah, again, right? I mean, just looking at it and how much he struggled throughout the season and took him so long to get up to speed with things, it's tough. And they kind of actually do touch on that a little bit when they're talking about I think it was after, if I recall the episode correctly, I think it might have been after Saudi Arabia. It was in and around Baku or Azerbaijan, and they're kind of telling they're frustrated by him not attacking the braking zone and being confident with the car. And that kind of tells you that's, as a driver, it's just you don't have that confidence with the car because you've had these big crashes, and you kind of got to get that confidence back again, and it takes a while to kind of work up to it. But
I believe Gunther tells him he's too slow to be cautious on the brakes.
Yeah, it was something like that.
He's not using them.
Yeah, he's not using them. You're too slow to be using the brakes anyways.
Yeah, and that's the thing with like also with racing, right? You're approaching like a braking zone at 300 and whatever kph, and you need to get the car slowed down in like a matter of like 50 meter board to the corner. And it's like, you think I can brake deeper than that? And you need to remember that's happening like split second. You need to have the right braking reference. You need to make sure you're dumping like, it's almost 300 pounds of pressure you're pounding into the pedal.
And it's a mental game too. It goes
100%.
against everything
you
ever know.
Yeah, and it's like perseverance, like, or self-preservation, right? You're like,
oh yeah.
I'm like some of the best breakers, Lewis Hamilton, Daniel Ricciardo, not Mick Schumacher.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's extremely difficult after you have a big crash. But like I was saying, it's understanding why you had the crash. Once you've understood why you've had like a really big accident, as a racing driver, you should be able to just move on and be like, okay, I need to get back in the car and let's go. It's a shame it's kind of ended the way it has for Mick. I think going to Mercedes, and I think Toto Wolff believes this, is that we've got this guy. We think he's got some talent. We just need to get his confidence back into him.
Yeah.
And then I think he may get another shot. I mean, this may not be it for Mick Schumacher.
I like the editing in this episode because they showed all the times he was failing, and they used his own commentary to kind of narrate his crashes. And he kept talking about trusting himself and pushing it to the limit so that he knows if he has 20% more, or if he has 5% more, or if he's at his limit already. And it seemed like he was saying those things, but on the actual racetrack, he wasn't able to do them.
One of the things that that I always learned when I was racing, if we look at the team, and I think DTS does have some cutaways where their team's a little bit disappointed with Mick's performances and whatever, and if he's not pushing that limit or getting up to that limit or being aggressive in the braking zone, then the team can actually get quite disappointed. They don't necessarily get that upset with you if you're crashing the car into a million pieces, but you're trying and being aggressive. Perfect example from myself that I can use is my first year in Formula Renault, first race of the season. I didn't get a lot of testing going in because we didn't have any money to like pay for testing. So I literally had to show up. We had practice on the Thursday, and luckily we had like a long practice, but it was kind of my first time working with the team, and that's tough. Like even just to jump into a junior single seater. And there was this section of racetrack that I was just really struggling trying to get the braking right for it, but I was being really aggressive, maybe way too aggressive with it, and like flying off the track and like almost crashing the car into a million pieces, and like going through tires like it was nobody's business, flat spotting every single tire, just flying into
locking it up,
just flying in. Man, we were coming through. It was at PIR, so Phoenix International Raceway. They had half oval came into the infield. It was coming from the half oval straightaway into turn one, which is this long sweeping left-hander, and I just friggin' sent it in, and, like getting on the brakes. Like I didn't like have brake bias adjusted enough to the front. I had too much rear locking, and so it would just lock and snap, and it just kept doing that, and it was like a scary thing, but I would just keep back out going and doing it, trying to be more aggressive with it. And I would come in and say to the team, like, look, guys, I'm really sorry. And they were all from Argentina, and they're an incredible team. And I loved every single one of the guys who worked on my car. I just would say to them, like, look, I'm really sorry. Like, I flat spotted all these tires. I didn't do any damage, but they're like, no, we like you because you take the knife and
yeah.
And like, but they weren't upset that I was like flying off the track and chewing up all their tires.
Because you'll learn.
Yeah.
And if you're not pushing it, you
I was
won't
pushing
learn.
it, right? Yeah.
You're testing the limits.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'm sure that Mick didn't have a ton of confidence the year before when they bring him into the team and the car sucks and Nikita Mazepin's a distraction and there's all that stuff. And then, Magnussen comes in and has the drive of his life to start the season. Now, you can understand how a guy loses his confidence. The one thing, though, that they do talk about and they hint at, and then I was following a little bit last year, was the German press's reaction to his performance. His uncle Ralf Schumacher, who's Michael's brother, who raced in Formula One, especially was in the German papers all the time. And you see an interview with Gunther.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, hey, How do you feel about, do you think Mick would do better if you supported him better?
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah, and I wonder if, because I think that happened before Canada, and I always wonder if it was maybe Mick's management poking the German reporters to
They certainly
get
were
them,
leaking things.
to get them to goad Gunther into an answer, or hey, why aren't you supporting him, et cetera, et cetera. I'm always curious about that, to be honest with you. It's one of the things I don't really know, but just watching that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, because that happened before Canada. I'm like, that's interesting, and then that's kind of where a lot of the issues started to happen between management and the team. So
Well, it's interesting because, you talk about the passion for Ferrari in Italy, right? And, for sure, German fans are Mercedes fans, right? A lot of Mercedes fans. But they are Schumacher fans.
100%.
Yep.
And that's the thing. That entire country loves that name, loves that family. And so there's a little bit of that, obviously a little bit of national pride going there. And I thought it was an adept move when Toto Wolff, also German, picks up Mick Schumacher at the end of the year. No, we're going to bring you home. And he says, to me, the Schumacher name belongs at Mercedes because that's where Michael finished his career. I thought that was funny. But I think... So I really want to dive down. I know you guys talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode about Toto picking Mick Schumacher up. I really genuinely wondered, was that a smart political move, a smart sponsorship move, or does he really believe in Mick, or is it all three?
I think it's all three. My personal opinion, I think it's all three. I mean, I really do. I think it's smart because if team principal, you've seen a lot of talent. If you see that there is talent with Mick, then you've got to try and get it out of him, and you never know when you're going to need him.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
In the episode, I think as Drive to Survive always does, they kind of always start at the low and they end at the high. Like it was terrible for Mick all episode, and then they end at the high when he's actually battling with Max Verstappen at the end of the race to get into the points and get his first points. And I think it showed in those moments that if he's in the right car and he has the perfect scenario, Mick Schumacher is a great driver. Like he can drive and he can battle, he can do stuff out there.
Hates a road course though. Hates a road course.
Most of the time, probably is going to send the car into the wall.
Yeah,
but
if there's no wall, it's great.
If there's a little extra room on the track, Mick can be a great driver, and Toto definitely recognizes that.
It was interesting with that crash in Monaco. It's during that particular section of track. So it was in and around the swimming pool section. I remember with last season's car that if you actually kind of got that offline into, a lot of water or debris or gravel, like it was easy for a driver to spin or bring the rear around. Like it was super easy, where in years past you didn't necessarily have that because there was so much downforce bolted onto the car. It was a little bit different, and some of the other drivers were also struggling with that. And I think that's something, if I remember correctly, I think that's something that caught Mick out at that moment. Like he literally was offline by not much. Like,
and Monaco's like that.
Yeah, and
it's never a lot, is it? With any crash,
especially with Monaco. Perfect example. Like you're offline by a foot or a couple feet, or you miss your braking reference by a yard, if that. Then,
well, there was some replays last year where when Charles was in front, and he's passing that last chicane before the turn, the right-hand turn that gets you right back to the finish line, the chicane by the water.
Yep.
And he is going by that thing, and there's an inch or less.
Yeah.
And I don't know how a human being does that.
Yeah,
I don't know how you do
so
that.
precise. I mean, I remember Daniel Ricciardo, I think it might have been Daniel Ricciardo's pole-winning lap there in, I want to say... It was either 2018 or 2019. Don't grill me on this, whoever is watching.
The comment section will be on you.
Yeah.
They'll correct you.
We like to call it the compliment section.
Yeah, okay. All right. Fair enough. I remember that pole qualifying lap. He literally, the right front tire just skimming the apex. You could see the wall starting to flex back because he literally was just pushing up just a bit on it. And then you'd seen that in practice with Max, he tried to do similar things, and he did it twice back-to-back years, where he just took a little bit too much, and it was, you push up against that wall, you touch it just hard enough, and it breaks the linkage, and
you're done
into the wall. 'cause you can't steer the car anymore.
Jesse and I both play Formula One on PS5.
Oh yeah.
I fucking hate Monaco.
Awful.
It's always been my favorite race to watch. I love it. It's it's old and it's whatever. But I have to ask about that track itself. And I know this has nothing to do with the episode. And I know their contract's up soon too.
Well,
That's not-
I think they, if I remember correctly, they
Did they re-up?
extended.
Yeah.
They
Okay, they
extended
did.
for a few years.
I just look at that track and how wide these cars are now. When Schumacher Senior was racing, they could pass each other. You can't pass anymore.
Nah, cars are too big.
Is this a track that's long for this world?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, cars are just too big right now. Too big and too heavy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this 2026 regulation change that we're going to see, like, I wonder if the cars will be a little bit lighter and smaller. Something like, the 2005, 2006 Formula One era where, you had the Benetton battling the Ferrari and
Yeah, a clothing company battling Ferrari.
Right.
Unbelievable.
it's awesome. But the cars were so much smaller and
Right.
so much lighter, and you could see how nimble they were. And that was great. Formula One. Those cars were
Was.
so awesome. They were awesome. I
Great sound of them too.
favorite era Formula One for me, 2000 and like Formula One car and engine. I would say 2000 to 2005.
So that was all the Schumacher years, basically.
Yeah, but I just the engine noise, man. I remember because I was in the feeder series at F1, so I got to like experience a lot of things that a lot of other people didn't. And one of the things was getting really close to the track and like just waiting for. I remember Jacques was in the bar Honda in that thing coming by, and it was, if I remember correctly, it was like an automatic downshift. And you heard this thing coming, and then you saw it, and then you heard it again, and then you felt it.
Yeah.
It would
Rumble.
shake the ground that you were standing on, and it would you could feel the vibration through the whole car as it came through you, the sound, everything it was putting into the ground. You were feeling that where you were standing. I'll never forget that feeling ever. Unbelievable. Those V10s were incredible. And those gearboxes were amazing. It's awesome.
Man, there's definitely some Formula nerds like,
yeah.
let's go. And don't worry about that. I think that's why we want to do this show. So we'll get to episode 5 next.
Are we not getting to the highlight of this show? This episode?
What is it?
Gunther on the paddock?
Oh, God.
When he's
talking to Medlin.
he's asking, and he says, "I'm gonna
Yeah.
fuck the whole paddock."
Yeah,
and
he's talking to Medlin.
And then he said, Did you use any bad language there? He said, "No, I was gonna hug the whole paddock."
Yeah,
We'll try and get Chris onto the show.
He's great, by the way.
sometime
Love
soon.
him.
Chris is awesome.
He's the one who got that quote.
Chris actually, when I was in at the USGP, I think like every night I hung out with Chris and like Nate Saunders and Lawrence Edmondson, and like we would go out and get beers and stuff like that on the night and just talk racing and stuff. But I didn't have a rental car, so Chris had to pick me up and drive me to this track every day, and I felt so bad.
He was your Uber.
Yeah, it was awesome though. It was great talking to him. I mean, he's a great guy. But yeah, no, that interview with Chris and Gunther is gold.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute gold, man.
I'm glad it made it into the show.
Yeah.
I used it, yeah.
It was a nice little piece again at the end.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that bow on the
Yeah.
episode.
I'm gonna fuck the whole paddock.